Welcome, my friends. Welcome to Cepher Moments, live upon line. Glad to be here with you tonight. Glad to be back on Cepher Moments live here on YouTube. And it is so good to have you subscribers with us. Remember that if you want to chat during this conversation, to make sure that you're a subscriber. And because this is limited to subscribers only for the purposes of the chat. And hopefully, this is going to be a, a welcomed show. We've entitled the show Line Upon Line because this show is really going to be kind of an abbreviated version of Cepher Moments that we used to do, where we used to spend so much time talking about really extensive PowerPoint presentations. And we're going to be dealing only with just a couple of verses, maybe one verse or maybe two verses. And tonight, we have a couple of verses in mind. And so, if you would, make sure that you put your comments or your questions in. You want to make sure you put your questions in all caps, and then they will be referred to me by our administrator, Dallas Knock, who is working the wee late at night in Britain to assist us on this channel. Okay, so I want to get right into it tonight, line upon line. And tonight we're going to be dealing with the issue of Lord of the Sabbath. Now, this is something that has come up many, many times, and people have asked me about the unique Cepher translations that we have both in Matthew and in Mark concerning this particular reference. And it's interesting because the Greek is really wildly different between Matthew, Mark, and even Luke, talking about Yahusha being the Adonai of the Sabbath. However, this is not the case that we see when we deal with the passage in Matthew or the passage in Mark. All right, let's take a look and let's see what I'm talking about. So we'll begin with Mark in chapter 2, verses 27 and 28. And the Cepher, translate these passages as saying the following. And he said unto them, the Shabbat was made for man and not man for the Shabbat. Therefore, Yahweh is the son of Adam and the Shabbat. What? Okay, so a fellow wrote me and he said, where is this? That is the most wild translation I've ever seen. Where did you get this? And, who do you think you are by putting it in this format? All right, well, who do I think I am? Well, I don't know. I'm just somebody who's trying to work with the underlying Greek. Remember that the Cepher uses the Stephanus Textus Receptus, the Roberto Estienne Textus Receptus, that was, early 15th, early 16th century. And it was the same text that Miles Coverdale used, that John Calvin used, that the bishops used in the Bishop's Bible, that the KJV translators used for their New Testament. Let's take a look at verse 28 in the Greek. So this is the actual Greek excerpt from the Stephanus Textus Receptus. Okay, hoste Kyrios estin o huios ton anthropon kai ton sabbaton. Now, you can see here there's several words here that are going to be kind of sticking out, or that should stick out. And one of them is, of course, Kyrios. Another one is anthropon. And of course, the last is sabbaton. Now, some of you might think that sabbaton means the first day of the week. Well, this is one of those instances where once again we see sabbaton meaning, guess what? Sabbath. And all the translators have used it as Sabbath. And so sabbaton, you can be assured, in the 129 instances where it's translated from the Greek, means Sabbath. So when we see hoste, and the hoste again starts with the omega here, but the omega has a breather mark to it, which means that you get this H put in front of it. Hoste Kyrios. Now the word Kyrios appears in three different declensions: Kyrios, Kyrie, and Kyrion. And we distinguish between these three declensions for the most part. It's not an ironclad rule, but it is a rule that we generally follow, which is that Kyrios was the Greek name assigned to the Yod He Vav He. If you go back and again reference the Septuagint, you will see that in every place where you see the Yod He Vav He in the Hebrew, you will see the word Kyrios in the Greek. Kyrie, we often translate as Adonai, and Kyrion as simply Sir. So in this case, we see Kyrios, Estin. Estin has the common meaning he is. O is a form of the. And then huios is the Greek word for son. And ton is another word for the. And then anthropon. Now, you might recall anthropology or anthropogenic, anthroponos. The anthropon is another word for man, And Kai, of course, is roundly translated as and then, of course, the tone, and then finally, Sabbaton, the Sabbath. So what do we see? Thus, Yahweh, he is the Son, the man, the anthropon, the man, and the Sabbath. So let's go back and let's take a look and see how we translated this. Therefore, Yahweh is the son of Adam and the Shabbat. Now, we use the son of Adam, and in fact, in the Way, the Truth, and the Life, we use the Ben Adam, which is really the same thing, the son of Adam. You have two basic characteristics of Yahusha. And the characteristics are that he is the Ben Adam and the Ben Elohim, or he becomes the Ben Elohim after the transfiguration. So the son of Adam is the way we put the translation of son of man. We're speaking particularly of the Ben Adam, the son of man. And so this is why it reads the son of Adam. Otherwise, this is actually a very transliteral translation of the passage. Therefore, Yahweh is the son. You could say, therefore, Yahweh is the son, the man, and the Shabbat. That's one way of putting it. Although the double the is quite often in the Koine semantics referring to the same thing, giving you actually a different form of. Therefore, Yahweh is the son of man, or the son of Adam, and the Shabbat. Okay, so there might be other translations, but you can see this is what we see in the Greek, and this is why we translated it that way. Now, you're going to see that this verse is going to be even different when you get to Matityahu 12:8. For Yahweh is the essence and the Shabbat, the son of Adam. Yahweh is the essence. Now, this is a very interesting phrase, and and I can tell you why we reached this conclusion. Let's look at the Greek. Here we see Kyrios gar estin kai ton sabaton, o huios ton anthropon. So once again, we see this idea of the man, right? The man, ton anthropon. We also see the Sabbath, ton sabaton, and we see O huios, the son. So Kyrios, gar estin, and the Sabbath, and the son, and anthropon. Or forget the ands because there's only one kai. Kyrios, gar estin, and the Sabbath, the son, the man. Well, because we have these dual tones here, the son, the Sabbath, and the son of man. So the question is this word estin. And estin is an interesting word because it goes to the idea of he is. And so the question of is, when you're talking about Yahweh, is kind of a very interesting idea because we see in the Hebrew the word Yahi. And again, Strong's doesn't look at the word Yahi. It tells you that it's Hayah, but it is not Hayah. It is Yahi. And Yahi has this idea of my essence, because really, literally, it's my I am. And so my I am does not make a lot of sense in the English. My essence is really a closer estimation as to what Yahi really means. So in the passage in Genesis 1:3, Vayemer Elohim Yahior vayahior, let there be light and there was light is how that's translated. But really, Vayemi Elohim, therefore said Elohim, Yahior, my essence is light. My essence was light, or my essence was light, my essence is light in these cases. And you see this idea of the essence. So in this case, in the term estin, We say Kyrios, gar, for Kyrios, and the gar is after the Kyrios, but it should be before. For Kyrios, for Yahweh, he is. For Yahweh is his essence, and the Sabbath, the Son, and the Anthropon. So let's go back and look and see again how we translated it. For Yahweh is the essence, and the Shabbat, the son of Adam. Okay, so with that, I hope that answers the questions as to this issue, because obviously this issue is one that is concerning to a lot of people. So you can see this is why we took the step that we did. Now, we didn't do this in order to bring our philosophy or our theology to the table, although you can see it reflected in our theology, because you can see that in Philippians 2:11, we say, we make the passage, Yahweh is Yahusha to the glory of Elohim the Father. This is an extremely important part of the Cepher. It is something that is non-negotiable. It is something that we have weathered the war over since 2012 when we first published the Cepher. And it's an important part of our doctrine. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to be dealing with it tonight, but I will be dealing with it later on in the week. And we'll be dealing with the idea of Philippians 2:11 as we go into this. Now, let's go ahead and start taking some questions. And again, for those of you that are new to the channel, put your questions in all caps, and I'll be happy to field those questions. And keep this in mind that, again, when we talk about the idea of this passage, I would like to take questions on this passage. And if you want to bring up other topics, that's fine. But I would prefer to deal with this particular passage. Okay. All right. So let's start at the top. What do we have, Dallas? Have we got anything going on?
Hey, Stephen. Currently, I'm seeing if we've got any questions. Oh, yeah. Can you hear me, can't you, Stephen?
You're not seeing any questions?
No, not at the moment right now.
That's really good. I must have answered everybody's question all at once. So I'm very happy about that. All right.
Hey, easy enough for you. Here we are. Here's the first question from Jordan Carr. Man and Shabbat look really closely spelled the same. Did the Greeks make some correlation between them? The word man and Shabbat.
Yeah. The word man and Shabbat. Yeah, there is a correlation there between the two. And in particular, but we see this idea of the Son of Man, right? O huios ton anthropon. And again, this idea of anthropon, anthropological, anthroponos, anthropogenic. This is all centered around the idea of man. And remember that when we see the name Adam, when Adam was first given this name, it was not only was it the individual name of Adam, but it was also the name of mankind, right? That he made man in his image and likeness. And the phrase there, euphemistically speaking to all of mankind, including male and female, right? Male and female, he created them. This was the word Adam was used to signify all of mankind. But Adam was also the name given to the very first man. And Adam in the Hebrew, of course, means I will be blood, right? You have the Aleph, Dalet, Mem, I will be blood. And so this is Yah saying, I will be blood. I'm going to create myself in this. I will be the blood in this man, Adam. And so Adam means both mankind and it means the single man. So when we see the word anthropon, anthropon is rightfully a Greek word translating Adam, meaning mankind. And this is why we use it as the son of Adam in both Matthew 2:28 and also in Mark 12, Matthew 2:8 and Mark 12:28. That's why we use it in both those passages, because it is interchangeable, the euphemistic word Adam for mankind and the Greek word anthropon. But you're right, it is directly correlated to the Shabbat. And so we see that the Shabbat does not exist in a vacuum. And remember that it says that man was not created to serve the Shabbat, but the Shabbat was created for man. A very important distinction, and something that the believer who has his eyes open and his ears able to hear can understand the root core of the intention of Yah. We see this, for instance, in the admonishing of the Pharisees, when the Pharisees say, well, look, it is by the gold of the altar that your oath becomes valuable. And Mashiach says to them, look, it's not the gold of the altar that makes it valuable. It is the altar that makes the gold valuable. Why don't you see this? It's the same thing with the idea of the circumcision. The circumcision of the flesh does not guarantee you anything, because you can be considered uncircumcised if you are a breacher of the Torah. It is the Torah that distinguishes whether or not you are circumcised before Yah, the circumcision of the heart, not the circumcision of the flesh. Okay. So yeah, you're right. That's a very good point, that in fact, we can see that the man is directly linked to the Sabbath, that the Sabbath was provided in Yah's image. And Jubilees even tells us that the Sabbath is celebrated in heaven. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Currently, there are none, but hopefully people will send them in a second. So let's give them a second.
Okay, well, while we're waiting, I just want to share one other thing with you concerning line by line. You know, the Cepher has taken some positions that are really quite different than most scriptures, and that's what we're going to be dealing with here on Cepher Moments from here on out. And we're going to be looking at scripture translations and transliterations that are going to be vastly distinguishable from what you read in your prior Bible. So prepare yourself for that, prepare your questions, and prepare your hearts, and hopefully Cepher Moments will be a blessing unto you. Okay, so unless there are any further questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up.
You have one more, Stephen.
Oh, okay.
So Sherry Slammer has asked, the Shabbat's kept when the new heaven and the new earth are here. Sabbath, sorry.
Can you repeat that, Dallas? I didn't quite hear you.
Are the Sabbaths kept when the new heavens and the new earth are here?
And the answer is yes. The Sabbath will continue to be kept. The Sabbath is kept in the heavens now as a continual ordinance. And when we get into the new heavens and the new earth, which, and by the way, keep this in mind, that this word there for new heavens and new earth is the same word that's used for the New Testament. So it's not really new, but rather renewed. And so you see, for instance, that we would not call the New Testament the New Testament, but we would call it the renewed covenant. In the Hebrew, the Brit Hadashah. Hadashah means renewed. So when we talk about the heavens and the earth, this is a renewed heaven and a renewed earth. And the answer is yes, the Shabbat will be present in the renewed heaven and the renewed earth. It's part of the sevenfold doctrine of Yah's entire creation, right? Which is another thing we will be talking about here in Cepher Moments, line upon line. Okay, so as we close out today, I want to thank Sandy Blair in particular. Sandy Blair was just absolutely phenomenal in helping us get through these IT issues, which if I was left here on my own, I would have taken my computer out on a snow machine on a 35-mile jaunt into the wilderness and hammered it up to a beetle-killed spruce and left it there. But fortunately, we had people who had calmer minds than me, and we were able to put this whole thing together. Jessica Knock was also very helpful. Dallas Knock was also helpful. Dallas is here handling our administration. Dallas, I want to thank you for staying up so late, and thank you for being a faithful brother. And I want to thank all of the team at Cepher Publishing for helping us put this together. So stay with us. Now, we're going to be here next Thursday at this time, and I think we have one more Thursday. We will not be broadcasting on the 25th because a lot of people are going to be avoiding the Christmas tree, and I don't want to interfere on that. I don't want to interfere in that avoidance schedule, wherever you may be. Okay, and but we are going to try to broadcast regularly on Thursday nights for the foreseeable future. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on Cepher Moments, a discussion line upon line of the unique verses found in the Cepher, discussed from an undisclosed location near a mountain called Denali. Okay. Thanks. Blessings to you. Baruch atah Yahweh Sebaot al Kadosh Hakad Yasharel and Baruch atah. Okay. Blessings and good night.